World Geography, Southwest Asia, Role of Women. Here are the learning objectives. 1. How does the Quran define the role of men and women? 2. Do women have less rights than men in Islamic societies? Or is it just impossible to understand another culture from a Western perspective? Introduction. Religion and culture. The relationship between women and Islam is defined by both Islamic texts and the history and culture of the Muslim world. The Quran, it states that both men and women are equal, but that men are the protectors and the maintainers of women. Throughout the Muslim world, women exercise varying degrees of rights based on different interpretations of Sharia or Islamic law. Sources of influence. Muhammad's view. Before Islam, women were considered a sign of weakness. They had no right to own property, and they were the property of their husbands. Muhammad was a progressive for his time and promoted women's rights. He instituted rights of property ownership, inheritance, marriage, education, and divorce. Gender roles. Rights and obligations. In Islam, the sexes complement one another and are considered equal before God. Islamic law and practice also recognizes that there are differences between the sexes, and these differences result in distinct rights and obligations. A woman's space is in the private sphere of the home, and a man's space is in the public sphere. A woman's responsibility then is to fulfill her role as wife and mother, and a man's role is to work and financially support his family. Female employment. Limited opportunities. Islam allows women to work, subject to certain conditions. A woman can work if she's in need of financial help. She can work as long as her employment does not cause her to neglect her role as wife and mother. Cultural reasons, more than religious ones, may determine that women have limited opportunities in some of these Middle Eastern countries. Many people see men as more reliable employees in the long term. Legal matters. Possessions and earnings. Women's rights in Islam are based around the marriage contract. Married women do not have to surrender any pre-marriage possessions to their husband. Earnings that are received from employment need not be contributed to family expenses. It just boils down to that all financial responsibility for the household's expenses, this falls directly on the husband. Inheritance. In Islam, women are entitled to the right of inheritance. However, women usually receive only about 1/2 the inheritance share that is available to men. The difference derives from the fact that men's obligations to financially support their families, that's an important obligation, and they need the extra money in order to fulfill that obligation. Women don't have the same obligation. Criminal matters. In criminal matters, there is much less gender equality. For instance, in many Muslim countries, it's almost impossible for a woman to prove rape. Muslim scholars, they say that a woman would need the eyewitness testimony of no less than 4 Muslim men in order to demonstrate rape. As a consequence, it's not uncommon for a woman who claims to be raped to be not only denied justice, but then to be charged as a criminal herself for committing fornication or adultery. So a lot of rapes go unreported. Movement and travel. No unaccompanied females. In some Muslim countries, women may not travel unless accompanied by a mahram, or a male relative. Some scholars state that a woman may not travel by herself on a journey that takes longer than 3 days. Other scholars are more relaxed, and they say for journeys that are likely to be safe, such as travel with a trustworthy group on a train or a plane, then women can travel alone in those circumstances. Women are forbidden to drive in Saudi Arabia. Dress code. Covering the body. The Sunni Muslim sect holds that the entire body of the woman, except her face and hands, these must be covered during prayer and in public settings. Young girls, they're not required to cover themselves. And in private and in the presence of male relatives, the rules on dress code relax. Hijab and Burqa. The hijab is the veil which covers the head. It can further refer to the traditional head, face, or body covering worn by Muslim women. The hijab is worn by women as a symbol of modesty, privacy, and morality. The burqa is a garment that's more common in Afghanistan, where it covers the woman almost completely. The end, and thank you for your attention.